So I'm just out having a quick ride on the Horwin CR6, so I'm going to do a bit of a ride review, tell you a bit about the bike, some about the specs, and give you a bit of a better understanding as to how it rides. Now, if you've never tried electric before, obviously it is a completely different beast to petrol. So you really do need to have a go on one to really understand what it's like and how it compares. But I'll try and give you a good overview just from my own experience as I ride it now. So the Horwin CR6 is a 125cc equivalent electric motorbike. So that means it's in the L3E category, which doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly a 125cc, but it's in the category above moped, and it is learner legal. So you can ride this bike on a CBT. So let's talk about power firstly. So like we say, it's in the category of a 125cc, so it's rideable on a CBT. But of course you're allowed up to 11 kilowatts of continuous power on an electric motorbike to still be within that 125cc learner legal category. So the Horwin CR6 is 3.5 kilowatts of continuous, 6.2 kilowatts of peak power. Now, if you don't understand the difference between continuous power and peak power, continuous essentially means that if you run the bike at full throttle for 30 minutes, what is the average power output of the motorbike? So like I say, for this one, for continuous, it's 3.5 kilowatts. Peak power is 6.2 kilowatts. So within that learner legal category, being allowed up to 11 kilowatts of continuous power means that this technically should be well under the power of a 125 petrol bike. But it's the torque on the electric motorbikes that really pushes it back up to be equivalent. So obviously the horsepower on an electric motorbike like the CR6 being down at 3.5 kilowatts of continuous isn't very high, but the torque as claimed by Horwin I believe is around 150 newton meters, which compared to a petrol is absolutely ridiculous. It's tenfold what you get on a petrol 125. So in terms of the way that the Horwin CR6 rides, it does have a really nice mid-band of power. It almost feels as though that the controller has been programmed in such a way that it gives you a little bit of a power band. So when you're first accelerating, it's fairly gentle, and then once you get to about 10-15 miles an hour, you do start to feel a bit more of the sort of the pull that you'd get from a naturally aspirated petrol engine, which is really nice. It makes it extremely smooth for the town and city riding. When you're pulling up to traffic lights, it's nice and smooth to pull away. There's no excessive acceleration. It's very gentle, really comfortable. But you know, when you want to pull away, that you have got that torque behind you to get you going and get you off the line. So in terms of town city riding, this thing is a bit of a beast really. It does the job and it does it well. So the next big question that everyone asks about electric motorbikes is range. What is the range? How far can I go on a single charge? So we've actually done a range test video on the Horwin CR6, which you can see on our YouTube channel. We achieved actual real world distance of 60 miles from 100% down to 6% state of charge. So Horwin states 68 miles of range from 100% to 0. We did 60. You could probably add another 2 miles on top of that for the 6% to 0. So 62 miles of real world range, which is not bad. It's really close to what they quote. And the kind of driving that we were doing was mainly 30 miles an hour, but some 40 mile an hour zones as well, where we were hitting full throttle, and we came out of mode 1. So since we've mentioned it, let's touch on the modes and what they mean. So you've essentially got mode 1, which is like an eco mode, and then mode 2, which is more like your standard driving mode. The main difference is mode 1 will restrict your power slightly, and it restricts your top speed. So you do top out just under 40 miles an hour in mode 1, and then you can flick over to mode 2. You get all of the power and you get your full top speed, which, as quoted by Horwin, is about 57-58 miles an hour, which is true. You do get to 57-58. In most cases it'll accelerate up to about 55, and then if you've got a long enough straight, or you're being aerodynamic, or you've got a bit of a backwind, then you'll get up to that 57-58 miles an hour. Obviously down a hill you probably hit 60 quite easily. So it is nice having the flexibility of those two driving modes, because it does mean that if you are just driving around towns and cities and you know you're not going to go over 40 miles an hour, then you can just flick it into mode 1, happily cruise along. You've still got enough power to get out of the way and to pull off the line at traffic lights perfectly fine. And then if you want to go a bit faster, you flick it into mode 2. The other advantage of the modes is that if you start to notice that you're maybe stretching the range a little bit and you need to make sure that you get home, you can put it into mode 1, obviously restrict your power, so you can eke out a little bit more range than you would if you'd left it in mode 2 under the same circumstances. So in terms of rider comfort, the Horwin CR6 is pretty much up there with some of the best quality riding bikes. Obviously the electric drivetrain massively helps because it's so smooth and quiet, there's no vibration, it's really comfortable to sit on. It's not like a petrol bike where you get lots of vibration, lots of noise. It can be quite intimidating for a new rider, whereas the electrics, they're just so smooth, they're so easy to get on and just ride. The other thing with the Horwin CR6 is general seating position is really good. Your seat height is just over 800 millimeters. Your feet are sat on the pegs fairly low down, so you've got about a 90-degree bend on your leg. I mean, certainly for me at 5'9", that's exactly how my legs sit. Your seat itself is actually quite nice. It's wide, it's got a good deep cushion to it, so it's really comfortable to sit on, even for long periods of time. So we did our range test. It took me about 2.5 hours to actually complete it. You know, when you're sat in traffic and going slowly, it soon eats up the time that you sat on the bike, and it was beautifully comfortable the whole time. You've got a really good handlebar position as well, so it does keep you quite upright. You've got a nice straight back, nice bend in your knees, and you could genuinely sit on this for hours. Like I say, we did 2.5 hours when we did the range test, and it was not a problem at all. I didn't feel any fatigue. It's a really nice bike to just sit on and ride. So it's genuinely perfect for commuting. And in most people's commutes is less than 10 miles, so even if your commute is more than 10 miles, if you're going 30 miles to work, you're still well within the capabilities of range. If you have the opportunity to, you can charge up when you're at work, so essentially doubling your daily range. You know, you could ride your full range to work, charge it up, and then ride your full range back from work. And of course, if you're doing that and you're sat on the bike for a couple of hours while you're commuting, it's really nice to know that you've got a good, comfortable, solid bike to sit on and do it. So with regards to the handling of the Horwin CR6, I mean, it's really perfect for the job that it does. It's certainly not a sporty feel, but then again, it's not a sporty bike. You know, this is meant for commuting in a city, in a town, or short blast down a B road from one town to the next. It's exactly what this is designed for. So, you know, you're not going to be breaking any track records on this. So, so don't expect that to be the case. But it does handle extremely well. The suspension is well damped. It's non-adjustable, although you do have some preload adjustment on the rear monoshock. But in general, it rides really, really well. I can't really see where I'd want to make any improvements at this point for the kind of riding that you do on it. So the one thing that you can say though is if you compare this back to back with its main competitor, which is the Super Socko TC Max, the front end of the Horwin CR6 does feel quite heavy. The TC Max has the benefit of the fact that it's just really, really light and really nimble, and you genuinely feel that in the handling of it when you're pushing a little bit of speed around some B roads and some twisties. Whereas the CR6 does feel a little bit more heavy, a little bit slower to react. But then again, when you're up at the higher speeds, it feels so much more stable. It genuinely is a planted bike. You're cruising along now, we're doing just over 40 miles an hour. There's a little bit of a breeze, but the bike feels absolutely solid. It's really smooth, really comfortable. Now Horwin have gone for a little bit of a traditional approach when it comes to the braking system. So unlike all of the other electrics in the market at the moment, your rear brake isn't on your handle, it's down on your foot. So you have a foot brake the same as a traditional motorbike. I don't think there's much of a reason for this other than the fact that they just wanted to do something that was familiar to current motorbike riders. Obviously still no clutch because you've got no gears. But yeah, so foot brake and front brake on the handles, same as a traditional petrol bike. Now it is nice because you do get the familiarity of riding a petrol bike. You know, you can just jump on this and the controls are very much second nature. But for even someone who is new to riding motorbikes, hasn't necessarily used a foot brake before, it's not a problem. It's something that you get used to extremely quickly. And certainly if you drive a car, you're used to modulating a brake with your foot anyway. So, you know, within a few minutes of riding, you feel perfectly comfortable with the use of a foot brake. Brake performance is again perfectly good for the type of riding that you'll be doing on it. Going in and out of towns and cities, you know, you don't need extremely high performing brakes. But that being said, they are good. You've got drilled disc brakes front and rear, single disc at the front. Obviously hydraulic with braided brake lines. So it is a good performing brake system. And you've also got Regen to help out with your braking as well. Now the reason why I bring Regen up within the scenario of braking is the fact that the Regen itself on an electric motorbike isn't hugely efficient. It's the sort of thing that helps you reduce your speed because obviously it's reversing the polarity of the motor, so it helps slow you down. But in terms of actually recouping any energy, because the mass of an electric motorbike isn't huge, you don't carry a whole lot of momentum to be able to recoup a lot of energy. So it's genuinely beneficial for your braking. It helps you slow down, it helps reduce wear on the brakes, and I'm sure it does recoup a certain amount of energy, but it's certainly not enough that you're going to notice it within the full charge cycle of a bike. That being said, it's great technology to have. It's nice to know that Horwin are investing in that kind of thing, and it's something that it's probably going to get more and more efficient in the future, so you might actually see proper gains back within one charge cycle. So in general, the CR6 is a lovely bike to ride, really comfortable, performs really well. You've got a good top speed, you've got great range, and obviously it charges off a standard UK 3-pin plug. So your charge time is about 3.5 to 4 hours if you're going from 0 to 100%. If you're charging between 20 and 80%, it's actually significantly faster, probably less than 2 hours, and you'll get that amount of charge back. And the battery and charger on the Horwin CR6 are integral, so the battery can't be removed like it can be in the Super Socko TC Max. But as long as you've got an external plug on your house or a nice garage to park it in with access to a plug, then it's not an issue at all. And again, if you can charge at work, even better. And one of the other benefits of having a integral charger is the fact that if you wanted to go and use destination chargers, you can buy an adapter that will plug directly into the CR6, and then you can plug that straight into one of the Type 2 charging points, like for example pod points in Tesco's, which gives you that extra flexibility to be able to charge wherever you want. Now, the reason why I wouldn't recommend that on other electric bikes, again, let's talk about the TC Max because it's its closest competitor, is the fact that you have an external charger. So if you do want to go and charge up outside and it just so happens to be a little bit raining, then you've obviously got the issues with the fact that your charger is out exposed in the rain. So if you then wanted to do that, you would have to bring a waterproof box for your charger. So now all of a sudden you're riding your motorbike and you've probably got a backpack on which has a waterproof box and your charger and your adapter cable. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to use those adapters for bikes that don't have integral chargers. So at some point we are going to get one of those Type 2 charging cables for this bike, so we can go out and we can try and see how many miles we can cover in a day utilising public charging network. So that's going to be a really interesting video to keep an eye out for. So unlike some of the other electric motorbikes on the market, Horwin don't currently have an integrated app for the bike, which is a shame because, you know, people like New and Super Socko have their apps with GPS tracking. You can remotely check your state of charge. If you've got your bike plugged in charging somewhere, you can see how many miles of range you've potentially got. So if you're not near the bike, you can check it. Say for example you're at work, maybe you're just waiting to get enough miles to get home, or you're just going to leave work as soon as you have enough miles, then that way you can check it without having to actually go down and physically check the bike. So hopefully at some point Horwin resolve that and start to bring bikes out with integrated apps. So all the technology is pretty much standard now for these kind of bikes. Obviously, as mentioned before, you've got Regen braking, you've got LED lights all around, you've got your different driving modes, but obviously in this market, the 125cc market is entry level, so you're not going to get all of the high-end technology that you'd get on other bikes. You're not having cruise control, there's no radar guidance from cars in front, you don't have traction control or ABS. This actually has a linked brake system or combined brake system, which means that the rear brake also applies some front brake. And the only reason why they do that is because for legal requirements, if you don't have ABS, you have to have a combined brake system. So that is the way that the Horwin CR6 goes, and it's the way that all of the bikes, electric motorbikes in this category, tend to go. You do get some options with the Horwin CR6, so there's a headlight protecting frame that you can buy, there's a small windscreen you can buy, you can get a rear rack and top box. So all of these accessories can be added when you purchase the bike. You've also got some upgraded seat options, so Artisan scooters or Artisan electric scooters. So Artisan electric scooters, who are the importer of Horwin into the UK, do leather seat options for this bike. So you've got a few different colour options. Nothing in terms of shape. The shape is standard. It's just the material and the colour that you can choose. So the CR6 itself, in terms of colour options, you have the white with the black frame, which is the bike that I'm riding now, and it's a point to say that you only get the black frame with the white bike. You've then also got a nice metallic navy blue, a British racing green and black, and they all come with a silver frame. And honestly, it looks great in any one of those options. The Horwin CR6, in terms of its design, is fantastic. I think they've done a really good job. It looks really nice, it's got good presence, it does take on a lot of inspiration from other petrol bikes. Some of the angles on the frame, the headlight shape, tank shape, you see those in other bikes. And again, similar to the scenario with the foot brake, Horwin are really trying to pull in traditional bikers to get onto these, and you can definitely see that in terms of the design. So in the UK, you can take advantage of the government OZEV grant, the Office of Zero Emissions Vehicles grant, which gives you 20% off the MSRP price. So in the UK, you're looking at a purchase price of £4,992, and then some additional cost on top of that. Oh, thank you. Cars coming out all over the place around me here. So in the UK, you're looking at a price of £4,992 with an additional cost for your on-the-road fee, registration, number plates, that sort of thing. So just over £5,000 on the road. But that is at the higher end of the market in the UK for 125cc equivalents. Again, talking back to the TC Max, the TC Max on the road is just about 4,500. So you can save yourself a bit of money going for the TC Max over the CR6. But again, a lot of the differences between the two come down to personal opinion on the way that the bike looks, the way that the bike rides, and they are very, very different in the way that they handle. And obviously the styling of the TC Max is quite a futuristic sort of neo cafe racer kind of style, whereas the CR6 is much more traditional. And like I say, just generally in terms of how they ride, they are completely different. It does depend on the type of style you prefer, which would make you go for one or the other. So in summary, the Horwin CR6 genuinely is a fantastic commuter bike. It may be slightly more expensive compared to other electric motorbikes in this category, but again, you do get advantages of the fact that you can utilize Type 2 chargers with the right cable. You've got a little bit more range than any of the other bikes, so it is a fantastic option if you are looking for an electric motorbike to get to and from work or to and from college or university. So thanks for watching this ride review of the Horwin CR6. We will be doing more of this kind of content for all of the other bikes that we offer, so please keep an eye out for those. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, please like and leave a comment as to what spec CR6 you would go for. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next one.